Hey there, super friends. Oh, let me turn down the heat a little bit. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Friday, December 15th, 2017. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. You can follow us on Twitter at Last Point Gaming. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Stranger Sparrow, or you can always reach out directly with an email to lastpointgaming@gmail.com. Yeah! Got all in one go there. And then, as I've been shouting out recently, you can also subscribe to our Last Point Gaming YouTube channel, as I have been pushing the podcasts to YouTube as well. You may not want to consume them through YouTube on your mobile data plan, because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked into if it's basically constantly streaming the still image like video, or if YouTube knows how to differentiate between audio files and video files. I don't know. So you just may want to watch out with that one. But there we have it. One thing I want to get out of the way here pretty quick. With the winter themed holiday coming up, my work schedule is all sorts of wonky over the next couple weeks, actually. Next week, I'm out Friday, so I'll do the regular casts like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday I'll do a morning cast and the evening cast, so I get my 5 in. The week between Christmas and New Year's, my company gave everybody off, but we do need to maintain a company presence each day, so there are going to be 2 days that I'm going in, which is why I have other days off. But I'm only going to be in at work 2 days that week, so I'm actually probably only going to do 4 casts. I don't know how to fit a 5th one in. And I'll do morning and evening all 4 days. Or both days to get 4 casts. Yeah, maybe if I make a coffee run, during one of my days off or something, because the whole family's off during that week. Otherwise, I just go out and drive around and record a cast, because, yeah, that's what I did last Friday. So, yeah, if I get a chance to, make some kind of solo run that is long enough in duration to make it worthwhile. My radio is hissing at me, so I'm turning it down. I had it really loud at lunchtime today, because it's a very quiet, very boring day at work, and I needed to wake up. So, yeah, there may only be 4 casts that week. And then the week after, I am out Monday and Tuesday. So Wednesday, I will do an evening cast, and then both Thursday and Friday, I will do both a morning and an evening. And the reason I'm not doing a morning cast that Wednesday is I'll have been off work for 6 days straight and probably groggy and oh God, returning to normal life, what? And so it'll be less quality than my normal morning casts, which are pretty low quality. So there you have it. Just to let you know, there's going to be some differences in when things go up. But again, if you're subscribed to us through SoundCloud, do you subscribe through iHeartRadio? I don't even know how that one works. I know we push there too. But if you're subscribed to us through SoundCloud or Spreaker, or follow us on Twitter, and that's how you find out when we have new casts, or subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll be notified as they go up. That's the best I can do for you there. Sorry. I've thought about, when the work schedule gets knocked off, doing casts at home and not driving, but I don't know, I feel like this driving thing really works. Otherwise you're gonna get to listen to me while I walk around the house and talk to you and yell at the dog and get out of there, what are you doing, stay out of the trash can. I don't know, I record while driving. That's how this works. I don't think I can do it any other way at this point. So, all that being said, there you go. The the next few weeks are going to be kind of a jumble, but I'm going to try my damnedest to get in 5 casts each week, despite not being at work 5 days. So, that being said, this is going to be another kind of rambly, I did kind of have a topic yesterday, I just digressed from it a lot. But yeah, I got like nothing today. Didn't even get to watch Terran stream for too long. He was running a neat, super aggressive mono-red modern aggro deck. That his thoughts on it was you either win by turn 3 or you die. So I don't know. I expected he kept talking about the God Hand, so I expected kind of like a zoo style deck, the Revolt Zoo. Because I think you could actually do that with mono red. You just have to ditch the hidden herbalists, but you could still have the Burning Tree Emissaries and the Bushwhackers. God, that deck was so neat. It is a shame that it was not more consistent, but if it was more consistent, that would kind of be a problem, because that would have been broken. Because, man, yeah, hands where you got to go off with that deck were... There's nothing like dealing 14 points of damage to your opponent on turn 0. That was, of course, the absolute perfect draw. No real margin for error. Once every 10,000 draws, you get it. Because it required, so many things. But yeah, the deck was fun. It's just not good. So, one of the decks I did get to see him play against that, I really got to look into and see if it's out there, because it makes me really, really excited, was the first deck I think he played against was a Black-White Warriors deck, or at least that's what it looked like. Now, games 2 and 3, the deck had Camball, Lord of Allocations, that's what it is. I always want to say allocution, and that is not correct. And Terran was kind of puzzling over that, but I think it's because... So, Terran's deck ran a lot off of, Monastery Swift Spears and Prowess triggers. So, I think they threw in the Campbell to tax him on the spells a little bit. Which is a good call, even though Campbell is not, of course, a warrior. But my second favoritist standard deck of all time was Black-White Warriors. And this I've talked about before, but a lot of you are new here, actually. This was in the Theros Khans standard. It was such a fun deck. You ran 20 lands, 4 Caves of Koilos. I think the list I originally built off of had Mana Confluences, but I didn't own Mana Confluences, so I was nuts to that. I think I had 1. So I did run a couple of the... what was the Black-White Temple? It wasn't Deceit, that was the blue-black one. I don't know. The Black-White Temple land that came into play tap, but you got the Scry one. I did run 2 of them in there, because I couldn't afford better lands. 2 Urborgs, a bunch of swamps, bunch of plains. It was so much fun. But what really made that deck kick, because I don't know what list I was looking at that I noticed there were... What? Why you beep at me? I'm in my lane. Anyway, there was some standard list I saw had a bunch of warriors, and it was black-white. That was oh wow, can we do this again? And no, you can't, because the key card that made black-white warriors fantastic was the Theros god Athreos. He was 1 and a black and a white, I think. It's tough to remember, this was a while ago. And then, all the other gods, he was a 5/4 creature with indestructible, but he didn't turn on, couldn't attack or block unless your devotion to black and white was 7. I know the dual-colored gods devotion requirement was higher than the monocolored gods because, of course, it's easier to hit devotion of 2 colors than it is 1. But his enchantment effect was if a creature you owned would go to the graveyard, or would die, I think it had to specifically go from the battlefield to the graveyard, you return it to your hand unless your opponent pays 3 life. And this was especially good with the Ashiok blue-black control deck running around, where they would steal your creatures and play them out, and then I would kill my creature that they were controlling. And there were more than a few blue-black players that did not realize Athreos condition was hit on cards that I own, not creatures I control. Or on creatures I own, not creatures I control. So even if they had taken control of my creature, if it died, it didn't just stay in the graveyard. And you had like Blood-Soaked Champion and Mardu Woe Reaper and Shadow Spear, I think. And then the top end of it was Brutal Horde Chief. And usually by the time you got the Horde Chief down, you didn't even have to connect. Your opponent would die on the swing the turn you played the Horde Chief, because Horde Chief had a life drain anytime a warrior you controlled attacked. So, it was super fun, great deck. It is the deck that I won off the Mulligan to 4 with once. It was such a beautiful deck. So, the reason Black-White Warriors definitely won't work in Standard right now, might not be the Standard, might have been the last Standard right before the last rotation I looked at it, is because there's no punishment for killing your creatures like there was with Athreos. There was nothing like that to protect you from board wipes and stuff like that, and, Fumigate would just wreck your day. So to see something like that in Modern really makes me excited that I can have access to all the cards that made that deck great, plus more that weren't available in that Standard format. I'm not sure if it's like really a thing or just something this person was tooling around with, but it did my heart good to see it. Now, I did mention this is my second favorite Standard deck I've ever played. My first favorite, of course, was Selesnya Hardened Scales. That was in the Cons into BFZ Standard. That deck, the amount of times I YOLO'd a 1-lander that, it had 1 green source and, 3 Hardened Scales, and I was like, nah, screw it, it'll get there. And actually won these games. That deck is my favorite. I hear that there is, in fact, a Hardened Scales deck running around Modern, but it's not really tier. And honestly, the only chance I really get to play Modern is going to, opens. So, if I'm gonna put all that into playing, it better be a competitive deck, which is why I'm currently on the 5-color human plan. But the nice thing about the 5-color humans deck is a lot of the cards are transferable between that deck and other, a lot of the expensive cards, I guess I should say, are transferable between that deck and other tier decks. Like Aether Vials are in the mono-white Death and Taxes, the black-white Eldrazi Taxes, Merfolk, that may be it, actually. But they're all pretty good decks. The Noble Hierarchs are in pretty much any Bant deck. They are the best Bant mana dork out there. Well, they're one of the best mana dorks, period. Just because of the Exalted. One, it helps you get around cards like Ensnaring Bridge, because when it is declared an attacker, its power is 0. It just happens to get Exalted triggers from itself and any other copies of Noble Hierarch you have on the battlefield at the time. So it helps keep pushing damage, because a lot of the decks that run things like Ensnaring Bridge, they are very slow to get to their win con. So if you can keep pushing through just a little bit of damage each turn, you can eventually kill them before they can kill you. They are slow, grindy decks, and it's because of that reason. It's not so much that they're controlled, but because they are slow that I don't understand why anybody enjoys playing that. But if you do, hey, to each his own. I do not begrudge you that. I just, that deck's painful to play against, but for me, personally, it would be very painful to play it, be on the giving end instead of the receiving end of that. But, so, that's where that's at. But yeah, I was just super excited to see somebody jamming some warriors. That looked awesome. Plus, then you can use Cavern of Souls. So then you don't even have to limit it to 2 colors. As long as they're warrior types. Yeah, think about that. I am still really excited about this humans deck, though. I think I need to dig out my laptop and roll it up on X-Mage to play some games with it, because I had been playing the 4 colors human deck on X-Mage a lot, because I'd come across that back when I was trying to play a fun list every week and talk about how that list did, and then usually if it was a list that didn't do so well, I would end the night with the last 2 rounds playing that humans deck because I was wrecking house with that thing. So I want to try out the 5 color variant and see if I have the same success rate. Because again, X-Mage is not a good barometer for how you're going to do at a competitive event. But it will help you get to know the deck, get to know the mechanics. And because it works a lot like MTGO, you'll get stopped for all your triggers, which will help you remember to look for them in the real world, so to speak. So, I don't know. I just want to make sure that I have the same, it looks like a similar deck, but the strategy is slightly different. And I want to make sure that I'm, able to utilize that strategy. Plus, because I was working on building the 4 color deck before, I have, Cocos and everything for Elves and Value Town, and we have built up actually quite a good collection of modern staples with the last couple master sets, so that's pretty exciting. Still excited about GP New Jersey this weekend. Seems like a lot of my buddies are going to be there in some capacity or another. It looks like a couple of my judge friends have volunteered to judge, so they're going out in case they get activated, and some of them are doing side events, some are doing the main event. I think the format is Ixalan sealed, so as much as I will want to watch coverage to watch out and see if I can spot my buddies, watching sealed, watching limited coverage is just kind of not really getting anything, unless, of course, you're going to be playing in the limited formats. I mean, maybe you get to see some cool interactions and think about basing a deck off that, but I don't think there's really any room for a shift in the meta in Standard right now. It's just unfortunate. I know there are those that disagree with me and think Teamer Energy is just on top because it's what all the pros are playing. But there's probably a good reason it's what all the pros are playing. I don't think there's anything that can really unseat it as far as consistently wins against, or match win percentage against any deck in the field. It has matchups that are less good for it, but it doesn't have any super bad matchups. And there are a couple cards like Solemnity. Solemnity completely shuts down that energy deck. What deck runs Solemnity? What deck can you fit it in? And the problem with building a deck strictly to take down Teamer Energy, is there are still other decks in the field, and you're probably going to get crushed by them. You know, I generally don't recommend building a deck or even a sideboard with one deck specifically in mind. You want cards that are going to be good against a range of decks because, one, you are still going to run into some of those rogue decks. And what is Alpha Investments ranting about? I don't know. You are still going to run into some of those rogue decks, and the thing with those rogue decks is they will knock the feet out from under a lot of people because they think in this very linear way with the deck they're playing that they don't really know how to accommodate for it. And that's why you'll see like some plucky upstart deck make the top 8 where it's like the only version or the only copy of that deck or any version of it in the tournament, and it makes top 8 and everybody's like, oh my god, this deck must be awesome, and maybe not. It may just be that people weren't expecting it, had no idea what to do against it, and just, made some poor sideboard decisions because they thought they had the strategy of it figured out, and they don't know what the sideboard is, they don't know what to expect out of game 2. And the nice thing is with rogue decks is you can usually score that first game win reasonably consistently if the deck composition's good. Because again, one, nobody's main decked to deal with whatever your strategy is if it's not one of the, prevalent strategies. 2, nobody knows what the strategy actually is, so they're trying to react to things as it's going and figure out, well, do I play this or do I play that? Like, now they've got to think of when they see how much mana you have up on their combat phase, what is any card in your colors that could possibly affect this in all of Standard, because it's not, okay, so you're playing Teamer Energy, you've got a blue and a red up. So, cards you could possibly have in hand that would screw me depending on what line I go. Harness Lightning, Essence Scatter. I don't know that Teamer runs a Braid much anymore. But, well, yeah, I guess with Godfarer's Gift popping back up. So a Braid, if I'm playing red, I'm thinking maybe Chandra's Defeat. That's about it. Maybe a Spell Pierce, but maybe a Negate, but that's pretty low likelihood. So, okay, in the Teamer toolbox, these are the cards I should be watching out for. So, which is more important to me to play around? But when you're playing against Abzan weird shit, you're like, alright, so what are all the cards in green, black, and white? Or, okay, you have a green and a black mana up. What are all the cards in green, black, or both that you could be able to play for that much mana at, whatever speed to hose me here? It gets a little taxing. So then at the end of game 1, when they think they have your strategy figured out, they sideboard in a way that they think will best combat that. And if you are a completely out of left field rogue deck, your best strength is to have your sideboard completely change your deck. Like, the transformative sideboard that takes your deck from an aggro to a mid-range deck, or an aggro to a control deck, or control to mid-range, or control to aggro, that makes the deck act completely differently, because then they're going to board going, okay, well, shit, I don't even know what's in that deck. I have no idea what's in the sideboard, so I got a board based on what the deck did, because that's the only information I have to work with here. So, yeah, you can get yourself to the top 8, and I'm not saying that it's a cheap win or anything else. To build a deck that, actually functions is a feat in and of itself. Especially to have something so completely out of left field that your opponent has no clue what they're supposed to do against it, but that actually works. And then you have to make all the right calls, and you still have to know what's going on in the meta. You got to know what to expect from Ramby Red with this board state, what to expect from Temur Energy with that board state, what to expect from Sultai Energy with this other board state. You know, there's still a lot of skill that goes into it. I've never really discounted brewers before, saying that there was something wrong with them or anything else. I have a lot of respect for them. I don't have that skill set. So, in any case, yeah. Sometimes these rogue decks do really well, and it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, somebody finally unlocked the code to beat Temur and everything else in the field. It's somebody put something together that was completely unexpected, so nobody had anything to deal with it. So now, if this starts popping up more, people are going to be changing their boards a little bit, and maybe even the main deck to, okay, well, this card's really good against these two strategies, but this card's not quite as good against those two strategies, but still pretty good, and hits this third one. Yeah, I think there's a reason we haven't seen a repeat of the 5-color humans deck with no match losses. And it's because people are more aware of what's in that deck now and what its strategy is and how it works. I still think Collins Mullins not only crafted a fantastic deck, I think he played it amazingly. I did watch a lot of coverage of that event because I was really excited to see this deck do so well. And you definitely saw him in some hard positions where he was very open to possibly losing the match, but found that line and, you know, just committed everything to it and pulled it out. It was truly impressive to watch. So yeah, with all that being said, I don't really like watching limited coverage that much. Just, I don't know. I also really don't like Ixalan sealed, like, at all. If you're going to be playing in GP New Jersey this weekend, my recommendations are, 1, accept early that you're likely going to end up with a 3-color deck. That building a 2-color deck with decent chances in Ixalan sealed is incredibly difficult and requires you to get some kind of god pool. 2, don't get locked into tribal. Look for the tribal synergies, of course, because if you can find some tribal synergy to kind of pull a little more cohesive of a deck together, that's always great, but don't get focused on that. Like, don't get tunnel visioned on that. I've seen that happen to too many people, where it's like, well, I opened these 8 vampires. 6 of them are awful, but they're all vampires, and I have an unclaimed territory, so I guess I have to play vampires. No. Play black, white, good stuff, fine, but I understand that's the most of any tribe you opened, but the vast majority of those cards are just fucking terrible. Yeah, and this is along with the general limited format deck construction tips of, you want anywhere from 15 to 18 lands, depending on how high your curve is. You want, you need bombs. Aggressive limited decks rarely do terribly well, like super aggressive, without a top end to back it up. 2-drop is probably your favored slot that you want to have your best density in. Removal is the best thing ever. Contemplate all of your removal spells heavily, because the more ways you can find to interact with what your opponent's doing, as opposed to basically both of you playing your own separate game of Magic that just involves you slapping each other and hoping that you're faster, the more you can find that interacts with and disrupts your opponent, the better. So, yeah. Good luck to anybody playing this sealed format. I don't mind the draft format so much. I've had pretty good luck with the draft and, pretty good experiences there. The sealed format is just so hit or miss. I know there have been a lot of sealed formats where it's like, well, you can get the God Pull, and I've seen people get the God Pull and they wrecked my day with it. Or you can get the extreme crap fest pull, and I've seen that happen, and people get their day wrecked with it. But by and large, most sealed pools are squarely mediocre, and you just gotta find the best line, and it's a grind fest, and, that's fine. Ixalan really seems really heavy to either you get greatness or you get complete garbage. Where are you? Okay, I'm just gonna go turn around here. I'm really not digging the Ixalan sealed format and really play it as little as possible. I mean, when we did the two-headed giant with it, it wasn't too bad because, again, one, you get 12 packs to try to build something workable out of, and two, you can build decks that complement each other. But solo sealed in Ixalan is just pretty awful. But all that being said, that's all I got for today, which means that's all I got for the week. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you all on Monday.